looking here, is insurance. There's different realms of insurance. Tonight we're going to keep it kind of short. It's actually fairly involved in terms of insurance. I mean, there's different types of insurance, but we're going to talk about home and auto. So life insurance and some of those issues that go along with that, we will save to a different time. Health insurance right now is in such a, it depends on the election. It's going to go one way, but none of the candidates out there are supportive of what we got right now, for good reason actually. But anyway, so it's either going to go, probably full single payer type thing with the government, being completely in charge of it, or it's probably going to be some private solution. Anyway, it's not going to be the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, whatever you choose to call it. So, but this stuff is pretty easy in terms of property and motor vehicle insurance. It doesn't have a whole bunch of changes to it. We will talk about those, some of the basic insurance type things, just some of the concepts and kind of how things work, and we'll look at some of the scams and stuff. So, yeah, just like I said, in general, insurance is, it's not rocket science. There's certain things that can be insured and certain things that cannot. Protection against financial loss gives you peace of mind. So the way that works is that it's kind of safety in numbers. Somebody is going to have a car accident. Somebody's going to have something go bad, but not everybody at once. Okay, so that's how the theory of how insurance works. Now you get to something like flood insurance. That's where there is no private flood insurance. That's a federal program, because you could have everybody affected at once or a big swath of people. So they're pretty. We'll talk more about that, but that's not a very changeable item. There's, it's a uniform policy. In other types of insurance, there's a little bit more fluidity to it. So the risk sharing bit, people purchase a policy, the firm assumes the risk, you pay a premium, and they make a little bit of money. Sometimes they do well, sometimes they get clobbered and go out of business. So, but anyway, insurance is all based upon risk, okay, and an assumption of risk and the rest of that. So risk is the true thing, the uncertainty that you're trying to cover by insurance. Risk is it's not in the gambling sense. You can't insure gambling debts. It's got to be other types of risks that are not sort of games of chance like that. Peril is the thing that causes it. So you'll hear this term, it sounds whatever, all perils insurance. It just means whatever ruins it, breaks it, fire, wind, hail. And sometimes you've got to be careful. There are some scams out there where people will sell you like insurance for cancer or something like that. That's not good. That's too specific, and they're trying to do that because they can offer you a very low premium because the chance of them paying off is quite low as well. Hazard is the things that increase the likelihood of the loss. So yeah, drunk driving, effective house wiring, other stuff you do. I mean, more common up here in Alaska. It'd be things, if you have shrubbery right up next to your house, like spruce trees and stuff like that, that's going to create a hazard. And then there's other things too that we get into liability, where it's things you should not have done. If you have a rake in the yard that's with the tines up, right there on the path, and somebody stumbles on it, they're probably going to come after you because you were negligent and have some liability in that case. Anyway, risk management, organized plan strategy to protect yourself against risk, the rest of that. So pure risk, property risk, liability risk. Anyway, insurable, chance of loss, not of gain. You're not investing. You're not putting 20 on red hoping to double your money. Insurance is loss. There is no upside. You're not insuring. This isn't, in this sense of the word that we're talking in personal finance, is not there's no upside to it. You're not making money. Accidental, unintentional. So, and you can predict it. Somebody, some dude in some cubicle somewhere can figure out the probability. It gets even worse in life insurance, but in car insurance and the rest too. They have pretty good ideas. So speculative risk is that other type of risk, and that's not insurable. Starting a business, things like that. You don't get insurance for that. So terms, risk avoidance, risk reduction, risk assumption, risk shifting. So anyway, they're kind of meaningless, but I've got some examples here. So risk avoidance, it's not realistic, more or less. Can you avoid risk altogether? What are you going to do? You can't really get around it. So, if you can maybe avoid auto insurance or auto accidents by not driving, but you can still get hit. It's just pedestrian. In fact, if you're on a bike, I would put yourself at greater risk, maybe. Risk reduction. So that's things you can do. Seatbelt, not getting all liquored up, things like that. Risk assumption. So that's when somebody assumes the risk. This issue of self-insurance is not very common. I mean, the University of Alaska and State of Alaska is self-insured. They don't deal with an insurance company. If one of their cars gets ruined, they suck it up and will pay for it because they've got a large enough pool where why have an insurance company involved? You also, if you're like a high wealth individual, it's kind of meaningless because if you're a high wealth individual, you're probably smart enough not to tie up your money in a bond, because if you wanted to be self-insured with the state of Alaska to be legal to drive, you would have to post a bond. You would have to get a chunk of money and set it aside. Most states have something like that, but it's just not often used. But if you're a diehard, I don't want any involvement, off the grid kind of person, you might want to do that, but not very common. But you would have to post a bond. Risk shifting. So this is what insurance companies do. And again, it's a good situation for you. It's a win-win. They make a little bit of money, and you don't have to post a bond and all the rest of that. And also for the rest of society, you don't have a bunch of uninsured people out there driving around. So planning insurance program, what should be insured, how much, what kind of insurance for whom. Anyway, that's just general insurance questions. But you really need specifics to make it meaningful. Insurance goals, develop a plan, put it into action, review results. They're trying to shove the planning process into it, but basically insurance is it depends what you're trying to insure. If it's life insurance, we could talk all day about it because there's some certain steps and there's a lot of planning that goes into it because your needs are going to evolve, hopefully downward. Kids are going to grow up, house is going to get paid off, your need for insurance is going to go down, hopefully to zero, because you're going to have assets and you'll essentially be self-insured. But automobiles, not so much. Anyway, importance of property and liability insurance, certainly. Now, I don't buy this thing in recent years. This stuff's been happening forever. I mean, maybe it's better coverage and stuff, but fires, hurricanes, tornadoes, actually there's been a lot less hurricanes. My daughter just called, too, during the break. They're under a tornado warning and watch this. I got nothing. Sorry. I live in Alabama. I'm not running down there right now. Anyway, she made it through it. So there you go. But things will happen, and it's very, very important. But you got to know where you live, And in Alaska with earthquakes, I had some damage from just doing some stupid things, but things that were top loaded and fell over, but not major damage. But other things like water heaters and stuff like that, you put a strap on them. Big shelves, you should have some sort of thing to prevent them from falling over. I almost lost a whole trailer of hay, like 8-10 tons of it would have rolled, but it just would have gone to the lower part of the yard. And hay's not going to break. It's just going to be a big fat mess. But anyway, property and liability insurance. Now, liability insurance is, again, just what I was talking about with where something happens and you end up being liable for it. So whether it's a car accident type thing and you're at fault, or somebody gets injured on your property and you get sued, that can all get pretty ugly. So you want to make sure you've got that sort of protection. And in the property insurance, homeowners insurance is not that expensive in terms of a loss or anything like that. And typically, if you've got a mortgage, you've got homeowners insurance because, again, the lender will often make that contingent. They don't want to take a loss, so they want to have a policy in effect, and they can do that. They can make that a mandate in the deal, in the loan process. So homes, automobile, furniture, clothing, personal belongings, physical damage, smoke, destruction, loss of use, burglary, vandalism, arson. So anyway, all kinds of ways to have things ruined. And has anybody ever been in a fire type thing? It's usually you have. And was it the smoke and the water that did most of the damage?
Well, yeah.
I mean, because the fire can do one thing, but the smoke and the water can have, the span of damage is greater generally. Yeah. But anyway, and this is where you figure out, when we talk about different insurance, you've got the opportunity to maybe get replacement insurance versus just straight insurance, and especially things like clothes and stuff, trying to replace those, doesn't seem like much, but it adds up. And depreciation on TVs and stuff, electronics, man, it's just not good. If you don't have full replacement. So, but other things, robbery, burglary, vandalism, arson. So you need to be protected. There's different types of policies too. Again, like in Europe, for example, I had a policy that would, if I got hurt skiing, for example, it would actually pay for the helicopter, pay for the put the dog in the kennel, give me transportation home, because in case you can't drive, you break a leg or something. And it was not much; it was $100 something a year. But you'll find different types of insurance, depending on where you're at. If you've got I don't know if anybody's got like a pit bull or a bull mastiff or something like that. Some of the more, aggressive dogs, and I know your dogs are all nice, but if they're in that breed and you don't have insurance, anyway, it can be problems. So liability, negligence, vicarious liability. So I touched on this before. Liability just means you're responsible, but your liability can be whatever. Like, for example, a friend of mine lives down in Florida. Boom, big old tree. Hit one of his trees, falls over in the neighbor's yard, destroys the guy's fence and like some property on that side. The guy calls him up and is like, you owe me. Nope, that's an act of God. So you got nothing. It was my tree, it came from my property, but sorry. And that's how some of those things work. But if you've got like a swimming pool with no fence around it and a small child ends up in it, you're in trouble. That's liability and that's negligence. So anyway, you have to, well, actually that's the example they use. So is that a good example in Alaska? maybe not. But you can do other things, if you let your kids dig like, punji stick pits or something and somebody falls into it. And it was your kids, now we're talking vicarious liability where that happened. And so, yeah, hopefully it's an innocent and throwing a ball, but if you've got a maladjusted kid, he could get you into trouble as well. And you'll see this too with, whatever, some kids will break into somebody's house who's on vacation or whatever, and they'll have some big party, publicized, and they come after the parents. And legally they can, it's vicarious liability, so be careful of that. Explain the insurance coverage, policy types. So, homeowner insurance, if you end up in a fire and all that other stuff, I don't do landscaping here, so I'm not too worried about trees and plants, but yeah, if you're stuck in a hotel for a while, if you've got to do a bunch of other stuff, it can get more expensive. In this personal property floater, you can call it a rider, a floater, or whatever, but we've touched on this before. If you've got something expensive, cameras, guns, whatever, and they need to be, specified on the policy if you're expecting to get reimbursed for them. Because you may say, well, I had, $20,000 worth of guns. I'll say, well, guess what? Our limit on firearms is, $1,000 unless you specify or whatever. There's going to be some details in the policy. So it can be, it's all nice until there's a fire, and then all of a sudden it gets kind of technical. Household inventory with documentation. So again, hopefully not in the fire area. Keep that inventory maybe in the fireproof safe with a gun, or maybe in a different location if you got family up here. Other things, medical payments for coverage. So this is on your property or way. Personal liability, and the personal liability has to do with some of those things I was talking about. You need to check too, especially, I don't know probably too many of you are renting cars for, travel and stuff, but if you are, make sure before you go that you know what your automobile policy is and what it covers. And if you're good with it, because you'll probably have some coverage through your auto policy, so you can decline all those charges on rental cars. And that's generally what you want to do. I was in I was in Atlanta not too long ago, and man, this German, he was used to the American system where they try to upcharge you. Because I always rent cars. Like I'm going down there next week, and the car is literally $10 a day. They would like to get more, So I'm going to go there, and it's just going to be, wouldn't you like an upgrade? Wouldn't you like this? Don't you? Of course you're going to get the insurance, aren't you? And you're like, no. Anyway, this German guy, he just went off on it. He was like, I can't believe it. Anyway, and I don't think he realized because obviously English wasn't his native language, and he wasn't realizing the full impact of the F-bomb over and over and over again. It was. But anyway, that's the game. But if you rent a car, they're going to do that. But you can save yourself a lot of money if you know what your own insurance coverage is. So you check on that before you do it. Your own homeowners or your own property, not property, but automobile insurance will typically cover you for certain things. And I've done it before where you're moving a vehicle from one place to another when you just bought one, for example, you haven't got insurance on it. Well, if you call the insurance company, and I'd speak to them, but they'll say, no, you're good for whatever, 1 or 2 days or something. But again, do that before you get in a problem. But and again, maybe I'm just fortunate to have a good company, but I've always found that I'm covered in those types of situations. Specialized coverage. So earthquake damage from floods. Yeah, the damage from floods, that's a whole separate thing because that's the federal program. The earthquake damage, believe it or not, there's earthquake zones. Mine didn't say it was that bad, but that last one, I got shook pretty well. But again, my house is from '84, so it's been through a number of earthquakes, and I think it really shook down by this point. Anyway, renter's insurance, we talked about this too a little bit. A good idea, not expensive, 100 and something maybe a year. So literally, maybe between $10 and $20 a month. And yeah, it only covers your stuff inside. But and I've seen leases, rental leases now where that's part of the deal, where you must have that type of insurance. Yep, the full coverage rather than co-insurance. You want insurance. You want the cash value type insurance or the replacement value insurance if you can get it. And usually it's a little bit more, but if you're in that type of situation, it's far nicer to go out there and buy new stuff, rather than be shopping around on Craigslist or whatever because they didn't give you quite as much money as you thought. How much coverage do you need? Okay, so this whole thing, this is kind of, replacement value of the house, value of the contents, protection for specific items, liability coverage desired. So, those are all valid concerns, but usually they come up with a calculation. The mortgage company, because most of the time when you buy a home, that's going to be part of the contract. You got to be careful with these guys though, because they did try to scam me on this. They called up and they said, you need more insurance for your home because we show the value of the home. Let's say whatever they show, $350, $360, something like that, and you only have $200,000 worth of insurance, property insurance on this home. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine with that. No, sir, but you don't realize that you're not protected. The scam is that the structure can burn to the ground, but the land is still going to be there. So I'm not losing the whole thing. And I know the reconstruction price of a home like I've got, whatever, I think it's 180-something thousand. So I'm fine. I'm more than fine. And they were just trying to get me to up things. So anyway, I kind of caught them in that one, but just be careful. It's usually, when you first get the insurance, I haven't found that that's the case, but they did come back to me, 4 years, whatever, after the thing would just sort of come on. It's like, you guys either don't know insurance or you don't know what you're talking about, but I'm not taking it anymore. I don't need it.
Does it usually cover, like, say, a fire, clearing the property of the demolishing and stuff? Is that a separate rider? Is that usually part
No, I think that was included in the 180, but I don't know for certain. But yeah, that's not going to be done for free either. Yeah. And especially if you've got it depends what you're at. Where I came from, it was, things were built on a slab. And in Germany, it's all on stone as well. But up here, if you've got some sort of wooden structure, it can be pretty difficult. They're putting these two homes next to me. It literally looks like a Cabela's type thing. It's just they're trying to outdo one another. But I've got a fairly modest home. But these guys, it's just crazy. And I don't know what the anyway. Yeah, but I know theirs are all their foundations because I watch when they're being built, and they're all, concrete and whatever. If there was a fire, they would be reusable. But yeah, the other structure and get that stuff hauled off. Demo is those guys don't work cheap because they don't have to. It's a specialized business. So. Replacement value though, so may limit replacement to 400 of the actual cash. Anyway, you got to read the fine print, but 10 to 20% more than the actual cash value coverage. In my mind, that's money well spent. If they say your TV's 3 years old, it's worth $200, and it's going to cost you whatever $800-900 to get a new one. It's nice to have good stuff. You don't want to go out and find an old whatever to put in there. Location, factors, location of the home, type of structure, policy type. A lot of times when you're working with insurance companies, they're thinking on a national level, and they really don't know much specifically about Alaska. So it kind of pays to know what they're looking for. But certain things that would tip them off are they're going to look like location of the home. They're going to be concerned with how far away is the nearest fire station. Are there fire hydrants in the area? I had a lady, she wanted to buy a whole bunch of horse kennels from me. She was setting up a horse operation up by Chitman. Anyway, it was too far away from a hospital or medical facility. Nobody gave her insurance. That's a different matter, but it's the same sort of logic that they use on these. So they look at where the home is, and they'll look for other fires and other wildfire type things that have gone on, and then they're going to start asking you specifics about the house. Some things you can change, some things you can't. But certainly want to make sure that you have smoke alarms, fire alarm kind of things around, because they will ask you about that. They'll ask you about a burglar type system, burglar alarm type system, and you can get a pretty rudimentary one, whatever, but they're going to say, do you have a burglar alarm? They're not going to ask for make and model and stuff, so and these things will lower the rates a little bit. Other things, the type of roof you have. If you got a shake roof, a cedar shake roof, they consider that a little dicey. I've heard they have problems with wood stuff. I've got a wood stuff. They never ever asked about it, and I wasn't offering up any information. But anyway, they're looking for things that can make problems. And then you yourself, like I say, when I got this home, it had a spruce, 2 spruce on either side. I mean, those things. If you ever lit spruce, it's amazing. I mean, it's lighting, like a dead Christmas tree. They go real fast. Birch, not so much. But anyway, there's things like that. So the type of structure, whether it's wood, brick, whatever. Up here, there's not going to be that much. I mean, if they are brick, it's usually just a fascia type thing. Coverage and amount, policy type, and deductibles. So deductibles, you can raise your deductible. That's not so much on homeowner stuff, but on auto insurance. I've gone with like $1,000 deductible before, just because it was a Corvette actually. It was just way too expensive. But the problem I had was I stacked a rental car, and they used my regular auto insurance to cover it. It was $1,000 deductible. I know. The lady called me up again. This was a great insurance company. She goes, "Why did you have $1,000 deductible?" I explained, I had a Corvette in Europe. The insurance was too much. She goes, "You probably would have had a $250 deductible." Yeah, I sure would have. Well, we'll just go ahead. And I'm like, wow. But that was years ago, and I don't know. I just got lucky on that one. So, like I said, discounts, alarm systems, smoke detectors. If you do multiple policies with the same company. And company differences, satisfaction index. I don't know. Sometimes it's like anything. The companies can change now and then, but it usually should be a company at least you've heard of. And like I say, if it's a new home or a new loan on a home, you're probably not going to have a whole lot of wiggle room in it. They may just ask for proof of insurance, or they may actually have their own insurance company that they're going to go with. So automobile coverages. Now this is pretty structured for insurance. This is not a lot of wiggle room. There's state laws that require what you have, but they're minimums. Keep that in mind.
And to tell you the truth, the Alaska ones are kind of outdated. So when you go to get your automobile insurance, they may have already adjusted the rates a little bit higher up above the minimum. So I'll show you what they are in a second. And then, yeah, proof of insurance. I've been pulled over enough now to know that the cops have absolutely no problem showing you the proof of insurance on the phone. So that works.
They seem to be fairly good on that. So these are kind of the example things they've listed, but the Alaska minimum amounts are 50, 100, and then bodily injury, death, property damage. But anyway, the important thing is the insurance people will say, oh, we'll give you 100, 350. And you're like, oh, okay. Anyway, so you have to kind of know that the order they kind of, not so much I won't test you on that, but that's what they mean when they quote off those numbers. So 100,000 limit will be paid to one person in the accident, 300,000 to the whole carload, and then 50,000 for property damage to others. So, you can quickly exceed any one of these quite easily. Medical stuff is going to just go nuts. That same accident, it was in Santa Barbara, California. I was living in Europe, and I was back, and anyway, it was intersection of two one-way streets, and I totally blew it. But it was a rental car, and go figure, he had serious back pain, and so it almost hit the limits there on the medical charges. And in vehicles for $50,000, you can go through that in a hurry. And keep in mind too, if you hit some guardrail, some fence, you pay for that as well. So I'm not saying leave the scene of the accident, but keep in mind you're paying by the foot for that guardrail. So yeah, that'd be worse. Then you'd have legal expenses in there too. Motor vehicle bodily injury coverages. So, yep, medical expenses, medical payments. Uninsured motorist protection. So, pays the cost of the family without insurance, however, does not cover their property. No fault insurance. Some states will do that, but it's,
I don't know, they still assess it. A lot of times, though, you can't, for minor accidents. Anybody been in a traffic accident lately? Not anybody's been in that too. Sometimes you have, people other than the cops show up. There's like these community police sort of folks that will show up that just sort of get involved in the admin. But you'll see other people get involved in a small accident like out on the Glen, and they'll just stop and freeze because they're waiting for the, police report. And the minute the police show up, they're like, get the cars off the road. That's pretty much the...
There's actually an accident like 3 or 4 weeks ago. It was this older guy, and the car was totally flipped over. I'm pretty sure it was off the right bridge, and he was in the middle of a ditch. But it was like nobody knew how he got there. And we were driving by right as he went there, and this lady was standing on the phone calling the police that they were there yet. And this old guy, he was on something, and he was just giggling at the bottom of the car and trying to get out. And he got to move, And the lady said he came off the off ramp, like he just went all the way across the lanes, and that his car was this way. So he had to have gone across, and then his car had to have done this flip over thing. It was also upside down.
This time, this is a bad, last year, the past couple of years have been super bad. Because you don't have that snow out there to cushion and kind of do that break. Yeah, but you still have the ice. So you have the ice, and then you see the fence up there by J-Bear. That thing is just mangled for, 100-yard stretches because people come out of there and, max smash coming out there and right into the fence, launching into it. It's just... I've never been one yet, but I mean the ditch drivers. There's a minivan out there. The corner again by my house. I could put a picture up, but anyway, they've slid 6 vehicles over in front of this guy's house. In this, he said that happened in a week. Because I took a picture. I went up to the guy. I said, "I hope you don't mind, but I got to get a picture for my buddy who lives here. He's still at work. Just to." Whatever, so I took a picture in front of Rick's house, and there's this guy, waving from his... He wasn't hurt or anything, but he was clearly off the road. So, anyway,
Property damage liability, so covers the other person's car. You can get, so this next one, this collision thing, if you've got an older beater, you probably don't need collision on it because you're paying a fair amount of money for that collision coverage. What collision will do is if it's your fault, it'll fix the vehicle, but you know what, it's pretty pricey, and if you've got an older car, you know, you need to drive careful and probably suck it up. Because it's you know, it's the retail value of your car. And I know somebody's going, oh, I got this old, you know, Camaro and it's like pristine or whatever. That's not what they're paying you for, unless you had it appraised and got that kind of insurance. They're paying you for a 1968 Chevy that's worth about $700 in their mind or whatever. If you've got something special, do not hide it from them. They need to know about it ahead of time. But anyway, collision. I had a Viper in Germany, and they have like 43 different classes, 43 being the worst, and the Viper was number 42 because it didn't have analog brakes, it didn't have traction control, all kinds of power, and idiots, you know, big gold shady guys driving them. And so it was just, anyway, it was uninsurable. I just had straight liability, and if it got ruined, it was, but if I had to pay insurance on it, it was going to be, I think, $13,000 a year. I mean, you could buy a new Viper every 3 years. I'm like, okay, I'll roll the bone. Anyway, but don't go into that. You know, you got to think about it before you do it. But if you're looking at vehicles, make sure you know what the insurance costs are, because especially if it's a sort of especially exotic thing, you may be able to handle the payment, but the insurance may be, because the insurance is completely dependent upon the vehicle, type of vehicle. Comprehensive physical damage, so other things, fire, theft, glass breakage. You know, to a certain extent, windshields, I usually just pay for it out of pocket. But be careful with this. I had another vehicle. I had these great tires and wheels on it. So I store in the car, so I took them off and I put them inside the vehicle. They got stolen. And guess what? They weren't mounted on the vehicle, so they weren't covered. I screwed myself. But anyway, it's, you know, you got to read the fine print. But generally, any kind of car stereo, car radio kind of thing, that's not going to be covered, or it's got to be specified ahead of time. But you can fight with those guys all day, but car stereo equipment is typically not covered. Wage loss, yep. If there's a, you know, and again, you're paying this other guy. If you happen to cause the accident, you know, towing, roadside service, huge fan of this. I mean, it's awesome now. I use it. My daughter uses it. It's literally a couple $3 a month. You call them now, and all of a sudden, you know, your phone starts beeping. Your tow truck will be arriving now, and boop, boop, boop. If you're driving beater cars, it's a great deal, especially in Alaska. I blew a motor, I blew some other stuff, and it's makes it much. They tow you to your garage, you know, the garage you want to go to, whatever mechanic you want, or to your house, and it's kind of a lifesaver. And it's cheap. If you're paying literally like $3-4 a month, that's about all it costs. Amount of coverage. So they're talking about, you know, recommended coverages. You know, I'll kind of let you make your own decisions as it goes up. I mean, if somebody sues you for $1 million and you don't have $1 million, they're not going to bother because, you know, they know they're not going to be able to get that out of you. So, but if you're a high wealth individual, if you got a big house, if you're a doctor or something like that, you need to have some coverage based upon what they're going to go after you for. Property values, certainly. So they're saying 50 to 100,000, but you can see, you know, multiple car accident, you could hit that limit and then some quite quickly. Premium factors. So yeah, year, make, model, theft rate. So certain vehicles, you know, are very, and it's not always what you think, you know. It's what people want and believes or wherever they're taking them. But especially if it's a sports car too, if it's got a propensity to either be a high performance car that, you know, people get in trouble with, or driven by, you know, people who have that kind of lifestyle, you're going to pay both sides. So, rating territory, yep, depends on what's going on. In certain ways, I would think Alaska would be more reasonable in terms of theft because, you know, if you're down on the Mexican border, it's going to be probably considerably more theft risk. In Alaska, you know,
You stole the car, now what are you going to do with it? Kind of problem. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen here, but we could probably get a break on that. But the number of people who end up in the ditch is probably considerably higher than anywhere else. So, vandalism rates, other things. But, yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, and so just when you're shopping for cars, you may want to also shop for insurance, not just between where you're going to get the insurance, but how much that insurance is going to be. Because again, silly things. I had a Dodge Challenger in high school, the old one, and the insurance was like half of what it was on a Plymouth Cuda. I always wanted the Cuda, it was kind of the cooler one, but the Cuda was a sports car, the Challenger was not, in the insurance company's eyes. So anyway, it made a huge difference. Driver classification. So yeah, if you're a young male, single, with bad credit, who likes to drink, good luck. If you're an older, but now again, if you get too old, it starts going up again. It depends on how often people wreck cars. But like middle-aged female that's married, driving a minivan, is probably not going to have much trouble. Assigned risk, so the SR22 kind of folks, there's certain people are going to either be accident prone or more than likely have certain factors that cause accidents. And you can get thrown in this pool. And again, they say they have to insure you, but they don't say, they tell the insurance companies, you go to do business in the state, you have to take some of these high-risk individuals, but they don't limit necessarily how much they can charge you. So you could pay some exorbitant rates, in addition to everything else that penalizes you with drunk driving. Has anybody ever got in trouble for using a cell phone, texting, or any of that kind of stuff? Because I've heard now that, kind of anecdotal, but if there's an accident, they will take the phone and they'll want to know if there was texting or something like that going on. So, anyway, another thing not to do. That happened to the guy who, Bruce Jenner. I think he's still Bruce, right? Until he seals the deal, I'm not calling him whatever he wants to be called. That's just a political statement. Anyway, but he was supposedly doing that when he got in that accident. Reducing non-automobile insurance premium. So yeah, compare larger deductibles, discounts. So yeah, good driver, non-smoker, safety devices. Yeah, more than one vehicle. So, and again, up here I've got a ton of different trucks and vehicles that I use with my business, but it's primarily summer business. So the minute snow starts flying, I cancel the insurance. Not cancel, but I cut the insurance down to whatever. I can't drive them. I pull the liability off them. So if they're stolen, they're covered. Yes?
I've got a discount with my insurance because I've had insurance before, like on my parents' insurance, and I went towards it with Progressive, and I also had another discount because I took driver's ed. But I did end up using that because it would cost more to use that discount with a different company.
Yeah. The interesting thing about Progressive, though, Progressive is one of these companies that's got, and again, I don't know how you feel about it, but what do they call it? The little device you plug in?
I haven't tried that.
Yeah. But that's like kind of Big Brother type thing. It basically...
Safety monitors, I think.
Yeah, but it's like a GPS kind of thing.
It's a USB plug-in.
Is it USB?
They put a little port in your computer in your car, and they just plug it in. It's like a black box on the front.
It's already in your car. You just plug it in to where you normally plug in every year. Like if there's something wrong with the
Yeah,
vehicle.
OBD2 port.
But it tracks like every time you brake hard and when you're going really fast, and it's like it's not something you really want in Alaska because lots of times you do have to brake hard.
See, that's the thing. I would be more concerned. I mean, it's those monitors that send the codes back. It's a way to get discounts, but I don't necessarily want. And again, you're fooling yourself. I mean, if you're like an axe murderer these days, and you rent a car from someplace, you could probably be reasonably assured they're going to subpoena the rental car thing and tell exactly where you went, because most of those things have got some sort of low jack or some sort of theft locating thing on them. So,
Yeah, I personally think that thing is kind of creepy.
I think it's creepy, and they were pushing it there for a while. They had a trade name for it. No, but they were requiring to get the discount. You want real cheap insurance? Let us see. And then when you claim your, safe driver discount, we see this car going 80 miles an hour or braking hard or doing whatever, or driving in bad neighborhoods, again, there's some pretty subjective judgments on their part.
With them though, I have to pay less than $100. With any of the other insurance companies out there, I would have to pay at least $130.
Oh, there you go.
Or
Yeah,
does that come from your parents' discount for continuation of that?
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, I mean, it's going to be the way it works. We're not jumping straight to the homework just yet, and I'm trying not to go too long tonight because I know you guys had the test. But I want to show you something that's pretty interesting. I've got a video in here that will show you kind of why taxes can be, or not taxes, but insurance can be as high as it is. God damn it. How did I lose this? I was just looking at it just a little while ago. It's worth seeing, though. It's going to make a liar out of me. Auto insurance scams. There we go. So this guy's trying to sell some
Watch
product.
carefully. This
But,
looks like a
okay, so we
regular
gotta get some
car
audio
accident,
going
but
here
it's
for a second.
actually an elaborate crime with multiple players.
Here we go.
Look at the... Watch carefully. This looks like a regular car accident, but it's actually an elaborate crime with multiple players. Look at the right side of your screen. That white SUV is the lead car. The driver's on the lookout for women driving alone who are turning left into a Los Angeles shopping center. Once he spots one, he flashes his brake lights, a signal for his partner. Then he waves for the woman to turn in front of him. But wait, now he pulls up and blocks her way. She has nowhere to go. His partner in the oncoming traffic lane races up and smashes into her vehicle. And the lead car simply drives away.
She was totally set up. Who's at fault if the police are called on this? The left turner.
Ike Watkins is a special agent with the National Insurance Crime Bureau. He says the criminals have extensive networks, including doctors who create bogus medical claims.
They only go 2, maybe 3 times at the most, and they'll sign that they've been there 30, 35 times.
And lawyers who represent the criminals posing as injured passengers. By inflating the damage to their cars and their bodies, the crooks cash in on insurance policies.
There's been a big upswing in insurance fraud. A lot of people aren't at work. They need the money, and they'll get involved in these accidents.
Think this was just some random crime? Think again. Surveillance cameras catch the same white SUV at the same location another day. Same game plan, same result. Lead car waves a woman's car to turn, then blocks her way. The second car creates the crash. And the maddening thing is the criminals in both incidents were never caught.
Here's what it would look like from the victim's perspective. I want to turn left into that entrance over there, and at first the other driver waves me on, but when I go to go, he blocks my way. And then a second car barrels down and plows into me.
Insurance companies lose money on these scams, but the victims can lose their lives. The women in the 2 Los Angeles accidents we showed you recovered, but in 2003, Alice Ross, a 71-year-old grandmother, was killed in a staged accident. When Ward Demolaire rammed his car into hers, she lost control and slammed into a tree. Demolaire was convicted of manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide.
They like to find a nice car, usually with a lone female driver, newer car, because they're pretty sure we'll have insurance on it.
These demonstrations, courtesy of the United Services Automobile Association, show the other types of staged accidents you should be aware of. In the panic stop, a criminal looks for a distracted driver, positions himself in front of them, and then slams on the brakes.
Actually, kind of like, I don't know.
Injuries.
We've seen that before. Some
In the
yabo
school
talking on the
squad,
phone.
A crook drives erratically and pulls in front of an accomplice who then hits his brakes. And finally, The drive down is when a driver pretends to be courteous, waves you around his car, then crashes into you.
That would have you at the scene of the accident. That would be bad.
Menacing is that in all of these staged accidents, the crooks make it look like you are the one at fault.
Don't waste all those cars to just show you.
Yeah, well, USA is a big company. They can afford to do that now and again. So, anyway, so any questions on automobile insurance? I mean, we talked about property insurance. I mean, it's something you got to have. Renter's insurance is something you want to have. The policy, what's covered in it is they're usually pretty good folks to deal with. Deal with them beforehand. If you're in an area where you need flood insurance, make sure you get it, but it's a federal program. I remember one time there was a water spout that was forming in a tornado, and I've got the insurance company on the phone, that same USAA, and I'm like, yeah, revealed by policy, just look at our water outside limits. They're like, nope, it's set. You can't change anything. I mean, even if tornado or not, it was just a hurricane, I guess that was, because it's a federal program. They just administer it for the government. So, and then, auto insurance. Do the best you can, and I mean, I hate to say it, but this monitoring bit is going to be creeping in, where they're going to be paying attention to your speeds and doing all that, and try to resist, but it's going to be difficult. All right, so I will put out an announcement to let you know what we got going on for next week. But sounds good. Any questions? Spring break? No. Homework? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, and homework is listed on the last slide. There, it's an auto liability question, and then property. It's fairly straightforward. As a reference, it's taken from the book. So 362 or 333. Let me turn this back off.